What up? What up? Welcome to Feelings Not Included. It's a podcast where we keep it 100% real about 100% real shit. Today, we're going to talk about why black men specifically, because I can't speak on anybody else, should not be stepfathers. And I know y'all going to take some heat to that and be upset with that. But hear me out. I saw a Facebook video today of a black brother, what I'm saying, doing his stepfather shit. Stepped up, did his family, did the family shit he's supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? Took care of the kids, paid for the tuition for one of the kids when she got ready to get married. She was like, man, I want real pops to walk me down the aisle. Dude ain't been nowhere to be found. Step pops is paying for shit. You know what I'm saying? And dude made this long spiel about how he felt disrespected and all that shit. And I honestly didn't have any sympathy because that's a that's a bad move. So let me explain something to you real quick. Um, I'm a black man, obviously, right? You can see that shit clear as day. My kids are by my wife. Didn't have any kids outside of my wife. Didn't have any kids outside of wedlock or anything like that. Um, but I knew at a very early age, I wanted my children by my wife, by the woman that I would marry if we didn't, do it before we had kids. Because I saw shit growing up. I saw stepfathers, and I'm gonna touch on a few key pieces, right? So I've got. Forgive me if I look down a little bit. I got some notes in front of me of a couple things I wanted to touch on, but just for the most part, number one, stepfathers get the short end of the stick, the extreme short end of the stick, right? These dudes come in, they do everything that they're supposed to do, but they're constantly reminded through actions, activities, whatever the case may be, that they are not the real father, right? It doesn't matter. You can spend all your money, you can spend all your time, but at the end of the day, when some shit goes south, you're reminded you're not the kid's father, right? Um, Another issue with that, and we could take this one way or another, but another issue with that is there's always another man that has access to your woman, and rightfully so, right? That's his kid's mother. So if he needs to communicate with her, he should be able to. But even if he hasn't shown up in 20 years, the day he shows up, he's got access to her. For a lot of guys, that's a concern. The other thing, and then this is one of my biggest things, is you're raising another man's child. And I know people are like, well, you can, let's help out the community because as black men and black males and young black children, we've got some issues. But you know what? You can actually do more for more families by helping out like the Boys and Girls Club. There's other charities, there's church events, there's all kind of shit you can put your time towards. So when I hear dudes say, what, these young kids need to be saved, that's simp shit. You're not trying to save the kid. You're messing with that kid because of that kid's mom. Let's cut the bullshit. If the mom don't like you, you don't fuck with the kids. That's that. So let's not pretend you're doing this great service for the community because you're doing it for the ass that moms is giving you. Let's keep it real. This is for those the exception to the stepfather rule, those guys who actually have their own children. I have seen black men be horrible fucking fathers and amazing stepfathers, and that shit is ass backwards, right? So y'all, I'm gonna skip over y'all. Y'all don't even count because that's the craziest shit in the world. But for those men who are not shit fathers, who happen to be stepfathers, think about this: the resources, the time, money, whatever it is, love that you're giving to these stepchildren is shit you're taking away from your kids. And we can look at this and say, hey, my kids have everything they need. Well, they can have an abundance. These are your children, your seed, carrying your bloodline and your last name. So you got to be a little bit weird, in my opinion, to want to raise somebody else's kids and put time in somebody else's kids' life when you have your own children that could benefit from you, being into their lives. I know people are going to say, oh man, my baby mama this, my baby mama that. You pick that motherfucker. So that's on you. Uh, you know, Again, the devoting resources to another man's kid, that one rubs me the wrong way. Like I'm all for helping somebody's kid out. I'm all for doing something. Hang on, my iPad decided to go dark on me. I got some other notes I want to touch on, but raising another man's kids and devoting time to that's time you could put towards your own children. So you know, it's that one's I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but the other thing is, let's say you're a stepfather and you have no children. So you come into this picture and she's got a kid by whoever, one kid, two kid, three kids, whatever the case may be. And you want to have a child of your own. There's no incentive for her, right? You're taking great care of her kids. If she has a child with you, there's a possibility, there's a risk, there's a real chance you're going to love your kid and show your kid more love and your kid more time and affection than you would the stepchild. And a lot of people are like, oh man, that's crazy. People don't do it. We're human. We're going to show love to our own over others. That's just what we do. Um, the other thing I see is, and this is typical of a lot of mothers. Don't physically discipline my child, right? My wife is like that too. Don't spank my kid. Don't spank the kids. Don't spank the kids. These are our kids. And at the end of the day, if they fuck up bad enough, and my kids are grown now, so I think in all my years I had to spank my kids a couple of times max. My son a little more than my daughter. I love him to death. I was a young dad, so anyway, um, as a stepfather, you're reminded when it's time to discipline that child that you're not their father, either whether it comes from the mother, whether it comes from the actual father, or whether it comes from the kid themselves, right? You're not my dad. You can't spank me. You're not my dad. And that shit's crazy because you're paying for shit. You're spending time. You're taking people everywhere. Shit's insane. So again, just that's just another reason. You can't discipline the kid because you're reminded that the kid's not yours. And oh my God, the worst one is when the kid says to you, "You're not my dad." Like that's crazy. I've got my guys telling me, "Man, I'm dating this chick," or one of my guys is married. He's like, "Man, I fucking hate my stepdaughter." I'm like, "Bro, that's a concern." You know what I'm saying? You hate your step. He's like, "Man, I wouldn't piss on her if she was on fire." And that's crazy to me. I'm like, "Bro, you shouldn't have married that woman if you hate that child." He's like, "It hasn't always been that way, but this kid continues to disrespect me because this child knows no matter what, mom's going to take her side." And no knock on moms, that's what a lot of moms do. And that's why when you're the actual biological father, you can still step in like, listen, I don't care what that shit is you're talking about. I'm still a kid's dad. I'm gonna handle this the way I handle it. But whew, going down my list here, it's one of the things that I noticed is you get all the responsibilities of a father and none of the rewards. You're looked at to fund that child's activity as if you were their father. You're looked at to protect that family as if you were their father. You're looked at to feed that family, right, as if you were their father. But as soon as some shit goes down, you're reminded you're not that kid's father. And this is where I say, from a black male perspective, it's really different because as a black male, we want to communicate with our fathers. We want our fathers in our life, even if we haven't seen this dude. Let's say you're born and your mom and dad split up for whatever reason. You don't get a chance to meet them. 15, 16 years later, pops show up. You want pops in your life, and it's kind of fucked up if you're a stepdad because you put in all this work for all this time, and then biological dad shows up and shit. You're reminded you're not my dad, right? He wants to spend time, and you're a piece of shit if you don't let that kid, right? Because that is his or her biological father. So that's one of the issues there. And then let's just keep it real. There's some badass fucking kids out here, right? So if you have a woman that has badass kids, you gotta deal with that shit, right? Them kids are bad. It ain't your fucking fault. Those kids are bad. It ain't probably the daddy fault who wasn't there, but nonetheless, those are badass kids. You got to come in and deal with those badass kids. The older the kids are, the harder it is for you to deal with them because they're set in their ways, right? You came along 12 years into some kid's life. He if it's a good kid, you're gonna get some respect. You might not get all the respect you deserve, but you're gonna get some respect. But if those kids are bad, it's a fucking nightmare. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know I'm gonna drink during my podcast, so forgive me. But just going back, to those badass kids, there's nothing you can do with it. In today's world, we hear a lot of, oh, if my ex is dating somebody, they better not touch my kids. You hear that from these dudes, right? Even though they're not in those kids' lives. So you inherit the bad, right? If you will, you inherit the bad with the kids, right? And so if the stepfather, or excuse me, the real father is a fuck up, he's gonna be a fuck up in your life. That's a problem you get. And then let's be all the way real, right? I skip my notes. I'm not gonna worry about the notes. I'm gonna keep it 100% real with y'all. Just go off the top. You didn't meet this woman with her kids in her arm, right? You met this woman. She probably kept the kids away from you. If she's a good mother, she probably kept the kids away from you until she decided you guys were worth meeting each other, being a team, or whatever the case may be. But you fell in love with the mom. You like the mom. The kids are a necessary evil, and I hate to use that word, but you can't be with the mom if you're not with the kids, right? So a lot of men are forced into being stepfathers because they like this woman, they like this chick, but for whatever reason, she had kids with another dude, and if he's in the picture, great. The only pass I'll give a stepfather is if the real dad is in their life, because then y'all can communicate and co-parent and do whatever you need to do to make this shit work. But again, let's keep it real. He's with you because he likes you. Those kids, he has no choice but to deal with, whether he likes them or not. And he's not gonna look at you and say, "Hey, I fucking hate your kids because they're bad." He's gonna deal with them, right? Like any good dude would. And then, let's be real. These guys are coming in, they're being stepfathers, they're getting attached to these children. And when those relationships end, and most, 50% of all fucking marriages end, so, you add the step parent feature to it, it probably is a higher number. If and when those relationships end, those guys are that bond is still there for them, but they lose access to the kids. So what about those guys, right? So it's a no-win situation for the stepfather, right? As a man, you're supposed to want to create your own family, create your own bloodline, and feed and support and protect and provide for your own, right? You can do all of this shit for somebody else's child, and they can be nowhere around, and 15, 16, 17, 20 years in, pops in the game. Hey, I'm fresh out the joint, fresh out of prison, fresh out of wherever the fuck I was at that I didn't care to mess with my kid. I want to be back in the kid's life. And boom, that kid's going to be like, hey, that's my real dad, right? Even if you've done everything for that kid, there's a high probability that child's going to look at you and say, that's my biological father. I want to get to know him. And there's not a damn thing wrong with that from that kid's perspective. But from your perspective, as the man, you're taking a loss, right? You're taking this loss because you've invested time, money, effort, energy. You've done all the things right that you're supposed to do. But when bio dad comes in, you left out the picture. So I can do this one forever because there's a shit ton. I knew at 12 years old, I was having my kids by the woman that would be my wife. I knew at 12 years old, I would not be a stepfather because I just looked at all that was going on around me, friends and family. I'm like, nah, I don't want that shit, bro. Right? I want my own. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Now, I will say this. I won't date a single mom, but I also won't create a single mom. Right? I knew that shit too. So y'all listening to me and y'all hear me saying, don't be a stepdad. Don't be out here creating single mothers though, if you're against dating single mothers. I just wanted to take a few minutes real quick and just throw this one together. I'm gonna do a series on this one too, because I think there's a lot of information here that we need to talk to one another about. And I think men get a bad rap if they don't want to be a stepdad, right? Actually, men who don't want to be stepfathers catch more shit than actual fathers who don't want to participate in their kids' lives. Women give those dudes a pass. But if you say to a woman, hey, I really like you, we cool, but you got some kids, I can't fuck with you, oh, she gonna lose her shit. And I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong that she loses her shit, but you're gonna catch more hell than the actual father who decided to bail on that family. So listen, for y'all that are new here, please subscribe to the channel, like this, click the little notification bell so you can get notified when we drop new content. This one, I'm going to do a series on. It's going to be hot. Y'all stay tuned. Y'all stay connected. And I appreciate y'all stopping by.